Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks, back again in 2019. Firstly, I wish everybody a happy new year, and hopefully the year has got off to a good start for the majority. As I said, we're back again here for the podcast, joined again by John in 2019. How are you today, John?
I'm good, thanks. Happy New Year.
And how was your festive period, your festive season here
Busy.
in Spain?
Didn't stop. It was really good. Yeah, we had a lot of fun and everything, but it was quite a relief to get through it all in the end, I think.
You had a few weeks off work?
Yeah, well, 2 weeks, more or less. I had a couple of workshops and things that we do just before the Three Kings. But apart from that, I had the whole of the Christmas week off, which was nice.
Now, that's the thing. We spoke about it before Christmas. The Christmas period here, of course, starts around the 24th, I suppose, goes all the way through to the 7th of January this year, because the 7th was a public holiday. And the big celebration for a lot of people is, of course, the 6th of January, the King's Day, the Wise Men Day, whatever you want to call it. I'm not 100% sure. Which is the traditional, let's say, the day that the traditional people celebrate, I suppose.
Yeah, I think although Christmas, as in the 25th of December, has become more popular now, and now we get Father Christmas, or Santa, if you like, Papa Noel, that come to a lot of houses in Spain now. I think a lot of houses still use the traditional holiday of the 6th of January, the Three Kings. That's the main holiday for them, the one where probably most of the kids get the majority of their presents. Yeah,
and all of the pageants and all of those things. I know back in Australia they have like a Christmas pageant leading up to the 25th. It's normally around the 15th or 16th of December, I suppose, where all of these, it's like a parade or a pageant through the streets. And here that's done on the 6th or the 5th. The 5th.
The night of the 5th, yeah. Just the night before the Three Kings arrive. The Three Kings obviously turn up, and we have the school, well, in Rivas, the schools prepare their float, normally on a theme. This year it was about music. So you see all the floats of the children go through first. They threw sweets out of the floats, all the children and adults
them up
as well, that are standing by in the road watching the parade go past. And then right at the end of the parade, you've got the Three Kings in the last three floats going past.
Did you go to the one up here?
Of course.
Yeah, I was there as well. I didn't see you.
I was up near right at the beginning.
Oh, you're right at
near
the beginning.
The main roundabout.
Yeah, that's where I was as well.
So in between the first roundabout and the main roundabout.
Okay.
Surrounded by about 30
cousins. You
so
up? So you were on the flat.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It was quite busy. It's a long route as well. I'm not sure how long it goes on for, but
3 hours, I think.
3 hours, is it?
Yeah. It's a fair while.
I always wonder if they have enough lollies at the end.
I know about this.
Oh, they do they?
No. There's a couple of times we went to the other end of Rivas to meet friends. It was probably towards like the last leg of the route. And the last time we did that, there were a few adults throwing some mandarins and some Costa Rica biscuits because they'd run out of sweets and they'd just gone to the supermarket and got a couple of things. Yeah. So no, it doesn't last.
No, and as you said, people dress up as the three wise men. There's been a bit of a controversy. Have you heard about it with Andres Iniesta?
Blackface, yes.
Blackface, yeah. People are up in arms about a photo that he posted on Instagram. His Christmas celebration in his village in Castilla-La Mancha or wherever he lives. Somebody or a couple of people decided to do the blackface, and he's been hounded on social media as a result. But he hasn't taken the photo down.
No, and I don't think he needs to. I mean, I understand both points of view, to be honest. I felt it was a bit unfair on Iniesta. He was there with the Three Kings, but he wasn't in blackface himself. So I can understand people think, oh, he's supporting blackface because he's with the other people. But at the end of the day, I think it all depends on where you're from and what you've lived and the experience you've had with certain types of racism and things. So what you actually think is racist. And I think in Spain, they haven't really been seen with the blackface issue forever. They all started off in America. It was when the actors and film, TV series, they had actors
Al
dress
Jolson
up.
and things like
they had actors dress up with blackface, and 9 times out of 10 it was mocking black people. You know, it was a joke and made the lips look really big with the blackface, maybe a wig as well. And you know, it's not nice. It's discriminatory or racist, however you want to look at it. And I think in England we also got the message a few decades ago that it wasn't the right thing to do. However, even in England, if there were fans of Michael Jackson, fans of a lot of different black people, we didn't really see it as an issue years ago, and people would dress up in fancy dress. Fancy dress is quite popular in the UK. You dress up in fancy dress, and if you wanted to be your favourite singer and you decided you wanted to be Michael Jackson when he was younger, there were kids that were dressed up as Michael Jackson, and I honestly didn't see the issue of blackface. But then when you learn the history of it, and you see why people, and mainly coming from America and American culture, are cross and very upset about the whole blackface thing, then you sort of understand why. And I think in the UK, although we've never really had that issue with the film and TV from the UK having a blackface issue, especially not mocking it, I think we understood the situation and people have stopped doing it. But in Spain, that's not really been... I think up until the last 2 years, maybe 3 years, people haven't seen this as an issue and didn't know there were people that were getting upset about it.
Well, a lot of people here still don't see it as an issue.
No.
The fact that Iniesta hasn't taken the photo down is probably one of the reasons for this as well. He's apologised, but he doesn't see the need. I mean, I read some of the comments on Instagram, and there's like a lot of people saying, take the photo down. But he obviously hasn't got to that stage where he feels that he needs to take the photo down. Whether it's down now or not, I don't know. But there was another issue here about a famous drink. It's like a chocolate drink. It's like Nesquik. It's called Colacao.
Oh, Colacao, yeah.
And the advert on the TV was something about, it was people consider that to be racist as well. And I think that was.
I've seen it.
You haven't seen it?
No.
I think
would know if I saw that. Yeah.
I think it's been taken down. I'll see if I can find the ad. But and I've spoken to people that I know about it, and they don't see any type of racism in it as well. But I know that it would be a controversial topic in the UK or probably even Australia nowadays, USA, etc. And you see people dressing up as the African king all the time. I mean, maybe not on the particular float here this Christmas, but another event that I went to, there was a guy that had a blackface on, and nobody thought any negative.
Well, the children all know the one of the kings is a black king.
Well, a lot of them.
If they didn't dress up in blackface years ago, it was probably
very
unlikely that you would be able to have that king, because the amount of black people in certain parts of Spain was probably very limited, and you'd actually have to bring someone in from another village, another town.
That was one of the reasons. That was one of the comments on the thing. You have to understand the history of Spain, and it could be that in some particular places there weren't any black people. Maybe I have no idea, to be honest. But that was one of the comments that somebody said as well. But anyway, we'll move on.
Yeah,
and we'll see how Iniesta.
It's definitely. It's definitely an issue that's growing in Spain now.
Yeah, well, people are becoming more aware.
Yeah, but we also have we've got more American people coming over to Spain now, especially teaching assistants. They're sort of bringing this
the idea with them.
The idea of stopping this with them. They get very upset about it when they see it, which you can completely understand from their own experience and the experience of their ancestors back in the States. Obviously, you can understand them getting upset about it, but I think some people need to open their eyes a little bit and understand that the history in America and some of the other countries where people have already stopped doing blackface isn't the same as other countries, and although it can be seen as being racist by some people, it's not meant to be that way. And until you explain to the Spanish people that don't see the issue, why there is an issue, is probably going to continue. So I think it's a case of cultural education, really, and changing the norms.
There are a couple of videos on YouTube by American girls, I think, on that teaching program, Is Spain a Racist Country? You know, being here as an African American or whatever, and how they are treated. So you can check those videos out, and some of the comments from the Spanish people in them is always that it's a little bit ignorant. I don't really want to use a negative word here, but a little bit ignorant compared to some of the movements that have been going on in other places for a lot longer regarding these topics, I suppose. You know?
But we've also got to remember that, I mean, Spain has been sheltered somewhat from the outside world for many years, and okay, it's been nearly 50 years now since Franco's gone, and things have changed.
Up in 50 years, I thought it was recent.
Well, not that recent. No. It's been 44 years, isn't it now? But yeah, if you look at the difference in history, so you've got to understand that these things need time to progress. It goes from generation to generation. You're not going to change people that are 60, 70 years old. You're not going to change their points of view so easily. They don't watch the same type of television, the same type of news. So it's something that needs to happen over time. Is Spain a racist country? In general, I don't think Spain's a racist country, but you do get racism. You get racism, I think, everywhere, unfortunately. But I mean, I've got to admit, I've had comments aimed at me in various ways, which have upset me at times. I've raised money for charities that have been based in India, Serbia, with the refugees coming in, and people have said to me, "Why don't you do things for people in Spain? Why are you raising money for these people that just want to be terrorists?" It's like, excuse me, that upset me, and it's not one comment. I had a couple of them on that, and I've also had
direct comments. Or?
Direct comments,
okay.
Yeah, direct comments, and I've also had comments at me personally as well. I wouldn't say. I think you can't really call it racist. It's more discriminatory, maybe. They basically, I'm English, so I must be some drunk hooligan that stereotypes, and they expect you to act in one way or behave in one way. They expect you to be here, not speaking Spanish, not understanding Spanish, because they see the Brits down on the coast. So yeah, I mean, there is discrimination, there is racism in Spain, but I don't think it's global, and certainly not in the new generation. I think everything's changing.
Did your kids have any problems with the surname at school?
Not problems, apart from people trying to say it.
No, but I mean, some kids maybe taking the piss. No.
But this is what I'm trying to say. I think the new generations coming through, the children, especially now, are living with immigrants. They're living with other English people. They're living with people that are coming from the Sahara, from various different ways. We've actually had 2 children from the Sahara area in our school. We've got a couple of Indian children that are in the school, Peruvians, other South Americans, and the children don't have this racist thought in their mind. They see them as other children. Yeah, they're children that have come from a different country. They don't look at it any other way. And I think because of that, the newer generations are adapting. I think even our generation, the people in their 40s, again, they've lived, they've grown up in a different way. They're not as sheltered from the outside world.
Having said that, though, the extreme right has all of a sudden popped up in Spain with quite a clear anti-immigration movement, though, which has a lot of people. I don't want to go into politics too much here today, but a lot of people are scratching their head at the moment, and a lot of the comments, you can read them on the paper. Franco's back. We mentioned him a couple of minutes ago. Franco's back, and there is a lot of talk about a person who died 50 years ago or so in the news today.
Yeah, and with reason. I mean, obviously, there were a lot of problems back in the Franco era, and a lot of repression, a lot of things that obviously weren't right. and having a political party come back that have basically got many similarities to Franco and his regime, I think is very worrying. But I do think that maybe I'm hoping that a lot of the people that voted for this party did it out of pure frustration rather than actually believing some of the political political things that they were saying. I think it's just
time will tell.
Yeah, I'm reluctant to speak about politics too much as well. I'm not keen on airing views, but not like this. But I think I'm hoping that we're not going to have an influx of Vox voting coming back here now. Not good for Spain.
No, well, we'll see. No, we'll see. Obviously, I mean, these groups don't just pop up. They've just split from the traditional parties, obviously.
Yeah.
But that's the way things go. So we'll move on to a couple of comments. Now, we don't really have a lot to talk about today, so we'll just look at a few of the comments that we've received over the last month or so. One of them the other day, in fact, a person here, My Little Photo Dream, says, "Hi, I've just moved to Spain for a couple of months and I'm trying to live on a budget, so I'm wondering what the cheapest groceries in Spain are and what do the locals eat?" John?
Okay, well, I mean, groceries as a whole, I think Spain is a lot cheaper than certainly some of the produce that we have in the UK. So I don't have any gripes about the prices in the supermarkets here. But if you want to go cheaper than the normal supermarkets, the comment that you made to me earlier, I think definitely the markets are a good place to go and get fruits and vegetables.
And just on that point, not only do you have the traditional markets in a lot of the big cities, but on the weekends you'll also find produce markets as well nowadays in a lot of smaller places as well.
Yeah.
Here we have a produce market now which has come quite close to where we are now. I don't know whether you've been or not, but
not yet. My family have.
They've been. Yep. And apparently it's quite good. You can get a lot of different things, and if you get there late when they're closing, you can get cheaper.
Bargains.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
I think they're pretty cheap anyway, but you can get some bargains at the end of the day.
Well, competitive prices, of course. Yeah, and the quality is good. I have a problem with some of the supermarkets. The quality of fruit and veg in some of the supermarkets, in my opinion, is not very good.
No, I've had some bad experiences with the fruit and veg in quite a few supermarkets, and the other thing is obviously there are some things that are packaged up. So if you want to be
environmentally friendly,
well,
that's it.
Yeah, it's good to go to these markets. They tend to give you paper bags instead of plastic bags. But what concerns me is a lot of the times some of the fruits and vegetables aren't available loose. You have to buy them in packets. So apart from the fact of not being eco-friendly, you get these polystyrene trays with plastic wrap around them. You can't see the quality of the fruit or vegetables that's inside too well either.
Yeah. Normally there's a couple of bruised pears.
Yeah, so it might be a case of they're a little bit more expensive than the general markets. And not only that, you can't see the damage. So that's one thing. The other thing is also the supermarkets and the markets aren't the only places to go. You've got your local shops, and I'm one. I like supporting the local shops, the local fruit shops. Yeah. We've got a great one in Rivas Pueblo. Really nice one, really good fruit and veg, brilliant. The butchers are dying down a bit now. They're disappearing, unfortunately, like they are in most of the world, I think. It tends to be more supermarket now, but the fruit and veg shop's definitely a way to go if you can't get to a market.
Butchers, I've noticed they're making a comeback in some of the supermarkets, though. If you go to the Carrefour supermarket down the road here, they've got quite a good butcher. Fishmonger as well. The local butchers, not many people are going into that trade, at least in this area here. In the Madrid, you can normally find them in the markets. If you go to some of the local markets in the Madrid barrios, you can find good variety of meat, cheap. They do any cut for you. They'll cut your meat up how you want. Fishmonger will cut your fish. He'll fillet your fish. He'll do whatever you want with it. And in that regard, it is quite good. And as we said, not necessarily expensive, I don't think. Food and fruit and veg, meat products. I don't find them all that expensive as well. I think you can live on a budget here. And if you have to go to the extreme of a budget, then just do the typical guisos that a lot of the Spanish people do, the lentejas and
lentils,
the potajes and all of
pastas.
those. That's what pasta, of course. Yep, that's it.
I mean, it's all there available. I mean, the other thing is, I've had to live on a budget before here in Spain, and if you've got a freezer, that's another good way of saving some money. You often go to the supermarket. For example, my favourite supermarket here in Rivas is the Autonomo, which is just down the road here.
Yep.
They tend to have very good meat, and the fishmongers is really good as well. So what I tend to do is, when I go to the supermarket, if I see they've got a special offer on some of the meat, or especially the fish, I will actually buy more than I need and put it in the freezer.
Yeah.
So you can actually save quite a bit of money doing that. Plus, you can take what you need out of the freezer and not over produce your dinners and your lunches. So
so living on a budget is possible. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah. Of course, you can do it anywhere, I suppose, but here you can get some good quality products for reasonable prices. And as we said, I don't think we would consider the typical fruit and veg to be overly expensive. I think
Spain's great prices for most of the fresh produce. It's really good.
Yeah, and there's plenty of it normally. Yes, normally an abundance of fresh produce. That's right. Now we'll move on to another comment here. I'll just move down. Now, got a bit of a negative comment on one of the podcast that we did a couple of months ago, podcast number 5, in fact. Spanish person here, Isabel Real, has written, and she says, vaya manera gratuita de desprestigiar a España y su cultura. Do some more research. Not everything is based on the hotel and service industry. We have fantastic health care services, great scientists, researchers, historians, artists. It's easy to generalize. Happiness is not found in money, but in culture. Now, I can't remember.
What did we say?
I can't remember exactly what we said in that podcast, John, to be honest.
No, I can't remember actually ever having a go at Spain in general for anything, really. We did discuss the service industry at one point. I think someone specifically asked what are the main industries in Spain.
Or we might have said that the job market's not very good.
No, definitely. Well, I mean, that's given, I think.
Well, yeah, but, I think what she's trying to say here is that there's more pros than cons. Not everything is based on the job market being able to get a job. Now, I don't know whether Isabel understood fully what we said in that video. Like I said, I can't remember. You can't remember exactly what we said in that video. We'll probably have to go back and have a look. But we're not here to talk down Spain.
Yeah.
We're trying to promote it in some way, shape or form. It does have a fantastic culture. There are a lot of cultural activities that you can do. Spain historically has had a lot of famous artists, of course, and it has won Nobel Prizes in the past for science and research, medical research and things along those lines. Not in recent times, unfortunately. I don't think there's been too many people, popping up in those fields. At least not here. There's a lot of people living in other countries, Spanish people living in other countries that are doing quite well.
Yeah, but again, that's been a lot. Spain has been losing a lot of.
Well, there's no money for those things.
A lot of scientists they've been losing to other countries, unfortunately. But Spain does produce a lot of good scientists. But I don't think we've at any point attacked Spain in any way in that sense. We mentioned obviously the main industries in Spain are service industries, the tourist industry in specific areas, because I think we were actually replying to a comment from someone asking, where would be the best place to go for the job that they had. I think we were saying Barcelona, Madrid, or the tourist areas for. I don't know if they worked in a hotel. I can't remember now, but we were specifically asked a question. We were answering that question, so.
I think the question was, what are Spain's industries? And we said that in the Basque Country, there's a lot of industry. Catalonia, there's a lot of industry. In Madrid, it's mainly services sectors based on the big companies. There's maybe a little bit of industry here as well. Places like Asturias don't have much industry at all. Andalusia, I don't think, has a lot of industry. So it depends where you go, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, that was the question. It was just basically generalising, which is what they were asking, the main services were in specific areas.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't I think maybe she misunderstood what we were saying.
Maybe.
Or I'm not sure.
Yeah,
we certainly didn't attack Spain in any way in that sense.
Now, it tends to be a lot of the negative comments that we do get here are in Spanish from Spanish people that maybe are not interpreting exactly what we're trying to say. And if that is the case, well, maybe somebody could do the subtitles for us in Spanish. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, so I don't think we talk too negatively, John, about Spain, but if anybody gets that impression, well, obviously there are things that we don't like, of course. There's things that I don't like about everywhere that I've lived. You know, I could sit down and list 20 or 30 things I don't like about Australia. You could do the same about the UK. But, you know, we're not trying to attack anybody's culture or anybody's religious beliefs or anybody's, I don't know if anybody is sensitive to these topics.
Not at all. I think we're just trying to be as honest as we can about our experience here, our experiences in other places when people ask about them as well.
And remember, we're talking about living here through foreign eyes.
Yeah.
As a foreigner.
Yep.
And how we have tried to adapt to this particular country.
Yeah.
And we're trying to help people who are thinking of coming here maybe and doing the same thing.
Yeah. Or people are already here trying to do the same thing.
Exactly. That's the objective here. So if that's not clear. So we'll just put that out there. Now, another comment here. I'll just see if I can find it. I've lost things here. Okay. Another comment here from Mark Blackface. I don't know if that's his real name. But he said €270 a month is nothing for healthcare. He heard about a Californian who was paying $6,000 a year for inadequate healthcare, so he had to move to Portugal. As for corruption, it's of a lower and more obvious level, whereas corruption in the USA and the UK is monumental and ingrained, and most people can't see it. So, for example, the PM of the UK has a husband who's making millions from insider information. Is that true about Theresa May? She has a husband who's making millions from insider information?
No idea.
I have no idea. The Clintons and Trump he mentions here as well. Now, I have no doubt that is the case. I mean, I don't think there's a society in the world that is not corrupt in one way, shape or form. But when we talk about corruption in Spain, you have the blatant corruption where people blatantly steal money, and then you have the other type of corruption here as well. So you get both aspects of corruption, as you do in other countries as well. Let's be clear on that. Corruption is not unique to Spain. It has come out a lot over the last 10 years or so, and some of the corruption scandals here are jaw-dropping. Basically.
They're enormous. They're enormous and they're frightening.
To what people have done, basically, with no remorse a lot of the times.
No.
And something that I can't understand. And but you know, I agree with his point there that corruption is ingrained in a lot of places. But you've got both aspects here as well. You've got that ingrained one, where you know, you hear stories here all the time that the I don't know whether you heard this story or not, John, but the train station in Guadalajara for the AVE train, did you hear about that? Where they built the train station was apparently on land that was owned by the husband of a former politician.
Oh, really?
So instead of putting the train station in the center of Guadalajara, according to the rumors, they put it about 5 or 6 kilometers outside the city, on the property, on the lands of this rich landowner who is married to a very influential ex-Spanish politician. Yeah, so that's crazy. Exactly the same thing.
And it's absolutely crazy. You do have to actually go outside of the city to get to the train station. I mean, I remember going past it for work purposes on various occasions and never understood why they would put a train station outside of the city. It's just absolutely ridiculous.
Well, that's what people say. I mean, you can never really work out whether these things are true or not because you don't have the transparency. And you hear stories all the time of politicians whose families are going into private health care and all of these things where they try to cut back on the public healthcare system. So all of those things here exist as well as that other, as I said before, that blatant corruption where you walk into the political party's headquarters with a suitcase full of cash. Yeah. You know, does that happen in Australia? I don't know. It might have happened in the past. It might happen today, but it doesn't come up in the press for some reason, or at least it doesn't come up in the press as often as it has done here in recent years.
I mean, we have scandals in the UK as well. I mean, there was the expenses scandal.
Yeah, well, we spoke about that as well.
But again, we're talking about people claiming back money for things they shouldn't be claiming back money for, and we're talking to maybe I think the worst case one that I actually read about was about 30-something thousand. We're talking about people blatantly stealing millions, and not one or two. We're talking about lots, as well as other awarding contracts for building and things to specific companies.
Well, that happens all the time.
It's just, I mean, it's blatant. It's in the news all the time. People are getting, some are getting put in prison for it. I think some are getting away with murder. But yeah, I think it's something, at least it's been addressed now by the looks of it. It looks like, Spain are actually doing something about it.
Well,
but the Spanish are very upset about it. So it's not a case of we're trying to make Spain out to be an awful country at all. It's just it's in the news all the time, and we're referring to it.
There's been a couple of cases recently. I don't know whether you've heard about them. About the Prime Minister apparently has access to a private plane that he's used on a couple of occasions for private use. As he went to a concert in Benicassim to see his favourite group, and the parliamentary groups questioned the cost, and they said that it only cost €270 to take the private plane down to Benicassim for the weekend. And then another thing popped up in the paper saying that there's a law in place that doesn't allow people to investigate the true travel costs of politicians. It's a law that goes back to 1960s. That politicians can basically, they don't have to declare their travel costs.
Why is that?
Because it's by law they're protected.
Yeah, but why are they protected by law?
Well, it's because somebody passed a law protecting so politicians could travel wherever they want, whenever they want. Lack of transparency, I think, is the key. And if it's legalised, this lack of transparency, which a lot of the times is the case, you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And the opposition parties can't investigate either, so nobody ever really knows. So all of these things just become, completely covered, let's say. But anyway, and €270 a month for healthcare, he says here as well. That's healthcare and a future pension. I might,
it's both.
I must add there, €270 a month. Now we're going to address this here as well, John, because another comment was from a lady called Iris, and somebody said. Alicia said, great podcast. What are your thoughts on the 2019 changes to the Autonomo social security structure? And Iris replied, what changes are those? Now, I've been looking into this, and the new government in Spain, they came into power last year. They had this idea that they were going to completely restructure the social security system. They had all of these big ideas. They were going to make it a system a little bit fairer, probably, that you pay your quota, that your monthly quota was more in line with your earnings, rather than just being a base. So if you made 40,000, you'd pay more than somebody who was only making 20. Which makes sense.
Well, not only does it make sense, but it brings it in line with normal wage structure.
Yeah.
If you're earning €800 a month, 270 of that is not going into your pension and the social security. You're paying a percentage for social security in your paycheck. If you're earning €40,000 a year with a salary, then obviously you're paying more contributions and you're paying more. Why in the self-employed sector do they have a set amount, a specific amount that it applies to everybody? It doesn't make sense, and I do believe that it should be a percentage structure. The more you earn, the more you pay.
Well, the thing is that the majority of people, and myself included, the majority pay the minimum amount every month because, as you said, it's a big chunk. And self-employed people, I don't know, there probably are a few that make a lot of money, but the majority don't, as we said. Yeah. And that 270 can be a big chunk of your earnings every month. So if there was a way to try to, to get it according to, a pay-as-you-go type of thing, that you were paying according to what you earn, probably would be fairer. But all of those ideas that they had, I don't think they managed to get them passed in the Parliament. So the changes actually became quite minimal in the sense that the only difference is that this year we're going to be paying more every month.
Yeah.
So instead of 270, we're probably going to be paying, I think it's €6 more per month.
Yeah, I
for
think
the
I was
minimum.
paying 278
278.
in the end of last year, so
probably
probably
the-
284, 285 maybe.
At the end of the month, we'll know.
Yeah.
So we'll be able to, speak
Yeah.
about this a little bit better. But apparently it's going up €5 or €6 a month. And the Tarifa Plana, which is like the flat rate for new self-employed people, which last year was €50 a month, has gone up to 60. So the only changes that I can see are that the payments have been increased, basically. So all of these wide-ranging structural reforms that they were going to do basically
Haven't
didn't
gone through.
get off the ground, no. And I think there are a couple of other changes that you can have a little bit, you've got access to unemployment payments maybe now as well. I think I was reading before, and there's a couple of other differences according to the regions that you live in. I think there's like an agricultural Autonomo. If you live in a small village where the agricultural industry, there's some type of discounts there as well. I'm not sure, but the changes are quite minimal, according to what I've read. Apparently, according to the CAB website, which we spoke about a few months ago as well, this information bureau here in Spain.
Yeah, Citizens Advice Bureau.
Citizens Advice Bureau. The government is going to try to renegotiate through 2019 and 20 to get these changes done to try to get these wide changes through. But whether that happens, I don't really know. But if you are planning to come to Spain and work as an Autonomo, basically you're just going to be having to pay a little bit more than we were last year.
Yeah, but again, it's one of those things. You just suck it up and go.
Suck it up and go.
About it. Yeah.
Suck it up and go. That's it. No, well, there's not a lot you can do about it. Exactly. You have to pay, and that's it. It's
pay it and get on with it.
income tax in general, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
you can try to go under the table, which a lot of people
not advisable.
Come to that conclusion.
Yeah,
but
I mean, to be honest, I think the cash economy is declining. The backhanders are disappearing a little bit now. There's still lots going on in cash, but it's definitely reducing to what it used to be. And if you get caught, I mean, you can get in a lot of trouble. So I really wouldn't suggest anyone starts working in cash and not declaring the money. Not the best idea.
Well, it's harder to move cash nowadays as well. I think they've also, last year, they brought in some changes to how much money you can actually pay in cash.
Exactly, yeah.
I'm not sure what the maximum is, but it's not a lot. So if you buy a new car, you can't rock up. You can't rock up with 15 grand in cash. Otherwise, they have to declare it. I think the car dealership has the responsibility to inform the tax agency of that cash payment. I mean, you can rock up there with 15 grand in cash, but you're going to get investigated, basically. So the changes didn't really go through in the end. But, I think we can be optimistic that Autonomos are going to get a fairer deal, John, in the future. Yeah. We'll see. I'm not 100% sure, but we have to try to be optimistic. But because at the moment, it is difficult to make ends meet, especially from a self-employed point of view. And I don't know whether you read yesterday, but a few of the big companies here in Spain announced that they're laying off a lot of people. Vodafone.
Yeah, there's a few companies that have made announcements, yes.
Blackface said that they're laying off a few people as well. The banks are in a process of laying off people.
Well, the banks are trying to go online, aren't they? So they're laying off more and more people. You go to, it's been going on for a few years now. You go to the bank, you want to put some money in the bank, and they send you outside to the cash point machine. And I think it's probably about 7 or 8 years ago now, I got told to do that. I was like, I don't want to do that. I said, I've come in the bank because I want to give the money to you and you put it in my account. He said, no, you have to use the cash point machine. Right, okay, well, if that's the case, I was like, I'll go online. I literally just closed my account and went with ING.
Which bank was that one?
That was Bankia.
Oh, Bankia,
yeah,
really?
We actually had an account with Bankia for one we had years ago, I think, when we very first came to Spain. So I got rid of that pretty sharp.
Yeah, well, that's a topic for another day. Trying to choose a bank here in Spain. All of the big banks, as you said, are trying to change their model, which has historically been a very branch-heavy network type of system, you could have a branch literally on every corner.
Yeah.
Cities like Madrid and even in some of the smaller cities as well. And because of all of the recent mergers, I mean, Banco Santander's didn't merge with Popular, it took them over, and Banesto Bank disappeared, and all of these banks have been disappearing over the years. Bankia went through the crisis as well. They merged with a lot of other banks, and they're just closing branches down, and as you said, trying to push people onto the online model. And there's a lot of new online banks popping up now. There's one called N26 apparently, which is quite good. The one that you mentioned there, ING. So
I've been using ING for must be about a good 10 years now, I think. I used it kind of reluctantly at the beginning because I wasn't that keen. I was never really that keen on the whole online banking thing. I was always a bit skeptical about doing stuff online when it came to money and things. But I started using ING through necessity, to be honest, a good few years ago, because I needed to have more of an access to my bank account, and I was living out in the sticks. So it became a lot better option for me. And then when the bank told me, oh no, you can't put the money here, you have to put it in the machine. I was like, well, if I'm going to do that, I might as well just stick with the ING. I just closed that account and I moved everything online over to the ING.
And you don't get the commissions or the other stress that you get with those other big banks.
No. I mean, most of my students pay me in cash, which I find the easiest way of processing it all and making sure I do everything properly is all the cash I get, I'll collect on the week that people pay me, and I'll take that to the ING cash point machine where you can actually make a deposit in the machine, and that's the only real time I go to a bank now is to actually a cash point machine to deposit money.
That's the specific ING one, yeah?
Yeah, there are two specific ones in Rivas, so I'll just go specifically to that one. Deposit the money in the machine, and that's the only real access I have with a bank that isn't online now.
Yeah. So that could be some advice there. Avoid the traditional banks and just go to an online one, because as we said, they're all going down that line anyway. So,
but it is a shame though, because I say all these online things, online shopping, and all, it's all taking jobs away. So I was reluctant to do it initially because of that. I was thinking, well, by going online, I'm basically taking work away from people than if I was working with a bank. And I quite enjoyed going to the bank, asking questions when I had any queries or anything. I wasn't that keen on doing it over the phone. But when all this started happening, I was like, well, I can't do what I want to do now anyway. I might as well just go with the online bank. Yeah. So they're sort of kind of pushing you towards it whether you want to or not.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what they're doing. Exactly right. Yeah, they're every day you get a message that there's a new app popping up and a new way to pay and all of those things. So it's just in line with what's happening all around the world anyway.
And in all different sectors as well. It's like in the UK now, you go to the supermarket, you've probably got maybe
automatic checkout.
Yeah, 30 tills open, 30 cash, tills, and probably only 10 cashiers maybe. All the rest are self-service, and I never use them.
I haven't seen a self-service here in the supermarkets yet, though.
In the supermarkets, no. They've got them in IKEA. I've had it in IKEA for a while now, and a couple of other places they've got self-service checkouts, but not in the supermarkets yet. But I'm sure that is going to be coming soon.
Yeah, well, that's not good, because if we've already got 16% unemployment and more and more people are losing their jobs because of automation, things are not looking too positive. But we're not going to be too negative. I'm going to try to think about the...
That's a global thought, though. It's happening everywhere.
We can always go and visit one of the cultural things here in Spain to help us get by these difficult times. Better, yeah. That's right. But anyway, all right. So I think we'll wrap up the podcast here for this week. We've been going for a few, 40 minutes or so today, so it's not too bad. John, I'll say thanks for your participation again. We should be back next week. We're going to eventually go out into the outdoors, into the real world one day. Just have to organise the logistics to do that. But we will go outside once the weather starts to get a bit better as well. It's absolutely freezing here in Madrid at the moment. I think it was like -4 last night, which was quite cold. And if you're in Minnesota, don't comment, because we know it's -20 there. But it was cold here last night, and it's a little bit cold to be sitting outside filming one of these podcasts. So we'll see if we can do that over the next few months. But thanks for your participation, John.
No problem.
And we should be back next week.
Yep.
And we might have something to talk about, depending on some of the comments that we get on these videos and what happens in Spain and what we can think about to talk about. Because this week I was a bit, wasn't really in Spain speaks mode, but we'll be back next week anyway. So
get out of the holiday mode.
Get out of the holiday mode, back into the real world, and we'll see what pops up on the agenda. So thanks for watching. Questions or comments, leave them in the section below. We'll be back again next week. So hasta luego.